And this is, how do I model a healthy relationship for my children to learn from? Wow. I mean, there's a bunch of different
Loaded.
relationships.
Yeah. Right.
But given that the early part of this episode was all about marriage, let's go ahead and restrict it to how do I model a healthy marriage for my children to learn from? Because I think in the long run, that's going to be one of the ones that helps them the most, because in general, they can learn how to be, if you're doing it right, they can learn how to be a good friend, they can learn how to be a good spouse, they can learn how to be a good person from the relationship that you model for them in that respect.
Right. Yeah, it is way more loaded than just model a healthy relationship or a healthy marriage or anything like that, right? Because it really is modeling. How do I model a healthy? How do I model being a good human to my kids? Is really kind of what we're talking about, because you can't separate them, because they live with you. Right.
Yes.
So you can't say, you know what, this is how your mother and I treat each other. But remember, this only applies to marriage. Right?
Yep.
You can't do that. Even if you tried, that doesn't work. It will leak. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm going to be overly simplistic about it, and I'm going to say two things: be kind and have integrity.
Okay.
And I think that covers a lot. The kindness end of things is probably, boy, they're both really important. But the kindness end of things is very important. And the way you treat each other, it absolutely gets modeled. No question about it. I see myself in the way my kids treat people today. It definitely wasn't a conscious effort when they were born, because I was not that old, and just trying to figure it out, like most young parents, right? You're just trying to figure it out. But I do I do see a level of I do see a reflection in how we treat each other. I see that in my kids. And I hope that I modeled properly. But yeah, I think be kind and have integrity, because I think that covers a lot of different aspects of things. What are you finding? Because you're still a young father.
Yeah, I can see in myself some of the different things that my dad modeled, specifically. Like, I remember a time, and I don't remember what was said, but I'm sure that I was disrespectful to my mom, and I remember my dad getting very angry at me and saying, "You will not speak to my wife like that." And he put an emphasis on it being his wife, because that is the relationship there. She may be my mother, but that's his wife. And
it's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice of words.
Yes, because there's that distinction. It wasn't you will not speak to your mother like that. It was
Right.
you will not speak to my wife like that. And while they do convey a similar message, there is a distinct difference.
There is.
And
It brings up questions for me. And mostly surrounding the relationship your dad had with his mom.
Yeah, I only met my paternal grandmother a couple of times. We didn't live near them, and by the time we moved to where we would have been near them, she had already passed. So I don't have a lot of context for that interaction at all, to be honest. Um, but yeah, no, he was very very protective of my mom. Um,
But
and
from that perspective, though, right? I mean, because that you know, look, it elicits a similar response from the kids, but it's as if, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's as if he was valuing his wife more than her role as the mother.
and
And
he
and,
may have been.
and again, I don't know. And again, that's
And,
why I'm very curious about his
and
relationship with his mom.
well,
Um,
and this is going to be a hot take that I think a lot of people are going to disagree with. But so I let me preface: I tell my kids every day that I love them,
Good.
but I have also at different times made it very clear. I've straight up told them I love their mother more. I love my wife more than I love them. Um, and like I said, that will be controversial. There will be
Yeah.
people that disagree with that. But in my opinion, and it's my philosophy, that in order for a family to hold together, the the parents in that relationship need to be more unified than they do with the rest of the family.
I agree with that aspect of it. Um, the the love priority thing is interesting. That is going to be the controversial part.
Yes.
Um, I've never thought about it in that way, specifically when we were bringing up the kids. Um, except to say that from a protection standpoint, I probably would put the kids first. And that is because, particularly at the time, my wife was more capable of protecting herself than the kids would have been as kids. And that certainly changes over time and morphs. Like my kids are adults now, and my wife, has become increasingly disabled, and so my priority for protection has changed. Um, but that's kind of where I've leveled things out when we were bringing up the kids is yeah, I guess where I'm stumbling is the prioritization of love.
Yeah.
I can't think in those terms. Like it just doesn't work for me. Um,
Well, I like what Steven, aka Two Dorks, put here in the chat. I kind of look at it as not loving them more, but differently. I take
certainly
a bullet for
differently,
either of them.
certainly differently, no question, no question. Yeah, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It is a different type of love, to be sure. Which is why maybe that's why I can't think of it in terms of more or less, because it's just very different.
Yeah. One thing and I've heard it multiple different times, but one thing that really hit me the first time I heard it, especially, is your spouse is the only person in your life that chooses to love you unconditionally. without an obligation there. They choose you. You're
Yeah, I
in a
get it.
perfect
Yeah.
world, your parents are going to love you because they're your parents. Your kids are going to love you because they're your kids. You know, family, there's the expectation of unconditional love from family members, but your spouse is one of the only people who truly chooses you to that degree.
Yeah, I think fundamentally I agree with you, but I believe that as we get older, those choices become more available. And so, what I mean by that is, I've made no secret about the fact that I'm estranged from my sister, and to the point where I have chosen to not have her in my life. Uh, is there a level of love there? Probably on some level, but I have probably dozens of friends who I would prioritize that love with more than my sister. Um, so I think that as we get older, as our relationships develop and change, I think that sometimes, and it's sad, but sometimes those opportunities present themselves where, that even the obligation aspect of things is not there, and there is a choice to be made because nobody's life is getting better out of obligation.
Yes.
You know
Uh,
what I mean? But there has been traditionally that loyalty and that, well, I don't, even with all their flaws, I have to love them. Well, I'm not sure I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. Um, and that's not I'm not going to say normal because I don't know. I mean, what the hell? I
everyone's
mean, but
normal is
yeah,
everyone's
yeah,
normal
right.
is different.
No, that right, exactly. That's why I was kind of backtracking on it. It's just like whatever. But man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
One of the things that, I guess, back to the main topic there was modeling healthy relationships for my kids. One of the things that especially lately, but in general, I try to show how much I'm willing to do the small things, because a lot of people don't, in my opinion, don't put enough emphasis on it. So when it comes to the small things, I'm talking about like helping out with dishes, help, like, because my mom's my wife is a stay-at-home mom, and so they culturally, historically, traditionally speaking, the the 50s mentality that a lot of people haven't gotten over is she's supposed to take care of everything with the house,
right.
and I have never bought into that mentality, and so I have always I have always tried my best to help out wherever and whenever I can, and especially now that I've transitioned to working from home full time over the last, I guess it's been 5 years now. The time flies, but I have a lot more capacity
Right.
to help out because I am no longer commuting to work, and during little breaks here and there, I can pop up, and it may not be much, it may just be 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, but the little things matter. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, so on top of that though, yeah, yes, absolutely. And but during your career, your time that you guys have been together, the amount that you're able to help changes, right? Just based on your availability and whatnot. And so even at your most minimal ability to have to make an effort, um, I'm sure Kelsey appreciated that.
yep. And
Uh,
I
yeah,
really like what Steven put in here too, to add more emphasis, is in his household, he says, our key rule to maintaining our relationship is that nobody keeps score.
Yeah.
No tit for tat stuff. Just do the jobs that need to be done.
No good can come from keeping a tally.
No, it cannot.
And you never win. Like nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
Nobody wins. And I have friends who do that kind of thing. And weird thing, resentment builds. What a strange thing. Yeah. And so look, like even in my relationship, my wife was a stay-at-home mom. And when the kids were younger, she was more able, and I worked a lot longer hours. So she did a lot of that stuff. But I would contribute when I could. But then the kids grew up and whatever. My wife is less able now. I work from home and I do almost everything. But never never do I think, you know what, I do all these things, she could at least do this thing. It's ridiculous. Like it just that, and if we were keeping score, I'd still be trying to pay back. And so there's no winning. So you just do what you need to do because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yep.
And that's the model. That I think that's what you're trying to model as well. You do what you need to do because it's the right thing to do. And if that means that you can contribute by washing the dishes and letting Kelsey go read a book, great. That's awesome.
And you mentioned it changes, your availability changes based on where you're at in life. It changes day by day.
Yes. Yes.
One day I'll have a higher energy level. One day she'll have a higher energy level, and we pick up any slack that each other needs, and we make it work. We are in it together in everything. It's not, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. No, why aren't you doing your job? No, it's our job.
Right. And what Kelsey actually said, Joe helped cut up the veggies for our fajitas tonight because I was running late grading papers for the kids. Homeschool adds a whole new business to our house. And look, in unhealthy relationships, Joe may have said, you're supposed to have the veggies cut for dinner tonight. Why didn't you get that done?
Yep.
What good can happen out of that? Like, best case scenario, she cuts them in an angry fashion and they're not evenly cut, and then everybody loses.
Yep.
Only a little tongue in cheek on that, but yeah, no, I think you guys have got it pretty well balanced, honestly, just from what little I know. So yeah, good on you. And honestly, that is something the kids will definitely model, even if they say they don't want to. Because as they get older, they'll start doing those things without even realizing it.
Yep.
And it's hilarious to watch when that happens. So yeah.
Yep.
Although sometimes it gets thrown in your face. So I've challenged my daughter on a couple of things, and she'll go, "Whose daughter do you think I am?" And I'm like, "Oh, stop. Just look. I wasn't looking for a mirror. I was just saying." So yeah.
But yeah.
Good topic though, really. Because it is pretty deep. I mean,
because your relationship has lifetime impacts on your kids.
Yes.
The relationships that you demonstrate, the example that you provide in every aspect will affect your kids forever, in perpetuity.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, Steven's talking about quantifying how they're feeling with the spoon system. It's funny.
I don't know what that means.
So the spoons, it's I want to say a relatively new term, but it's probably the last 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. But it has to do with everybody has a number of spoons which quantify their energy. And when you're out of spoons, you're out of spoons.
Got it. Yeah, I haven't heard the spoon metaphor, but I've heard Very similar. Yeah.
And there are people who have challenges, and I would say, frankly, my wife with multiple sclerosis has that challenge where she would maybe one day she has 10 spoons and another day she's got 3. And that's I've even heard people who kind of measure their energy level calling themselves spoonies, just uh, because that's kind of how they have to operate every day. They wake up and they go, ooh, this is a 5-spoon day, just knowing from the get-go. So yeah, it's I don't use it. I think it's interesting. And frankly, had I learned about spoons earlier on, I might have used them, but specifically with relationship to my wife. Because I have no spoons all the time.
Oh man. A random kid. All I'm hearing is that I need to spoon more.
Yep. You just got to figure out, are you going to be the big spoon or the little spoon?